Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Sports Show. I'm your host, Stephen Downs, and we're here for another Town Talk special. And it is a very, very special show today because we've not just got Mr. Kaine Hall on, we've also got Callum Scott on. He's just making a cup of tea. But we've also got two of our regular Monday night hosts, the absolutely fantastic non-league expert, that is Lewis Sale, and we've also got Chris Bell. Let's me and Chris. Here's Callum now. He's made his cup of tea. Hi, Cal. How we doing, son?
Not bad, chaps. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, mate. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through today's news. Nothing really's happened, to be honest. We're just going to review the loss to Bristol Rovers, and we'll be off in 10 minutes. So it's going to be a great old stream. Lewis and Kaine. I'm looking forward to the boxing match that's going to come with the certain views. But here we go. So basically, the big news is, me and Chris did a stream on this earlier at 2:30. Please do go watch that if you want. Is that Michael Duff has been sacked, relieved of his duties at Huddersfield Town Football Club, with 10 games left to go. The Terriers lost 1-0 to Bristol Rovers yesterday. Were booed off the pitch, and we have slipped out of the playoff places. I'll come to you first, Kaine, because I'm surprised that you've not got the banners up and the balloons out, mate, and the champagne popping, because you've got your wish, my friend. Jon Worthington is in charge for the next 10 games, and Michael Duff has gone.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? It makes absolute perfect sense to do this. Look, Michael Duff's he's a decent guy, but his stubbornness has put him into this position. There's been no kind of change, no adapting to what he needed to do in terms of the injuries that he's had. And it seems as if he's had an 11 in his head that he's always wanted to play with. And then anytime when anyone else has come into the squad, they've not been able to do what he wants them to do. I just don't get that. I think you've got to adapt to what you've got in terms of player ability, player awareness, player's brain. And it just seems as if he's not being able to do that with what he's had. And yeah, I've been saying it for a while that the performances haven't been good enough. And we all know that. The performances have not been good enough. And I've said it throughout the year. It's not a winning formula, is the formation that he's played in. He's had opportunities to change it. He did change it a couple of times, and when he did for 20 minutes, they were fantastic. The fans were behind them. And then he reverted back to old ways. And in a sense, when you look at it like that, personally, I think he's got what he deserves. Don't get me wrong, the injuries have been tough for him, but he should have done more with what he had. And as Kevin Eagle said, with the resources that Town have got, they should have been doing better. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I think Jonathan Worthington, for the rest of the year, is going to be solid. He's going to bring some passion. He's going to bring a bit more directness in terms of going forward. The attacking options will be there, and the fans will be behind him. And I do think Town will end up back in the playoffs with Worthington in charge. I don't think he's the man to take the club forward. I think he'll do a great job. But there's a good opportunity now for someone to come into the club. It's a good opportunity for the board to try and make the right decision on the next manager while they leave Jonathan Worthington to take the rest of the season.
Yeah. Callum, your initial reaction?
It's going to sound very odd, but it was one of surprise, I think. We all know that the results haven't been good enough, but you can put a lot down to the injuries, the depleted squad, the decisions taken above Michael Duff's head. But again, ultimately I agree with Kaine that it was a surprise decision, but not a wrong decision. Yeah, okay. I think there are mitigating factors in Michael Duff's tenure, as there is any manager. But ultimately, injuries or not, the resources that we have at the football club, the money that's been thrown at it, that chairman is looking ultimately for a return on his investment. And has he seen it from Michael Duff and the tactical setup, the attitude of the players under Michael Duff? I don't think he has. I don't think we've got bang for buck out of any of the January signings. Certainly not Dion Charles, certainly not Joe Taylor, So if And this is a sort of good thing for Huddersfield Town now. We know exactly what we're getting with Worthy. We know what he does to a side that's down on its luck. You know, he galvanised that team the last time he was in charge. We saw results that were anomalies throughout that season. You know, didn't we drub 4-0 Chef Wednesday, was it?
Yeah, Chef Wednesday, yeah.
You know, that was from a team that had struggled in front of goal all season. Then all of a sudden they're scoring 4 goals in one game. You're thinking, right, where have these strikers been? So I sort of expect a bit of the same now from Joe Taylor, from Dion Charles. You know, kick on and underworthy because he's got nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose because if it's a poor tenure at the end of the season, he goes back to the academy. He's got nothing to lose, and he'll be honest with the players and he'll tell them that. So ultimately, what I think, and this is subjective, of course, a lot of these players have played to get Michael Duff out of the football club.
Well,
they can't do that now. They don't have that now because you can't play to get Worthy out of the club because he's only there in an interim position. So it's either you play for him or you don't play at all.
Well, we'll come on to that point in just a moment. Lewis, you obviously have seen the news today as well. What was your initial reaction?
Not surprised, based on what I've seen, what I've heard, obviously from you guys as well. Do I think it's the right decision? Outside looking in, no. I think it's a very short-term fix. I think that the board have not backed themselves by appointing Michael Duff as what they wanted in the first place. I think they've gone back on themselves, and it feels to me like it's another little bit of a write-off in terms of who've appointed. I think there's a lack of strategy, a real clear plan of what Huddersfield Town want to be, who they're supposed to be, and identity-wise, going from one manager to another with different styles, different formations. There doesn't seem to be a bit of a blueprint for what I think that basically the club needs to probably stand for. And I think injuries have really, really hurt Town like they would a lot of other teams. I think it's difficult. You're never going to play your first team majority of the season. That just doesn't happen in football. You're always going to get injuries. I think the centre-back situation has been, I'm not saying unprecedented, but it's not far off. I think when you're losing your centre-backs like the way Town have in recent weeks and months, I think it's going to hurt any team. But I just feel that usually, not saying all the time, but usually good teams who are up there challenging at the right end of the table have a little bit of stability, a bit of consistency, and playing the long game a little bit more than what's been shown. And I just think this seems to be, like Cal said, I think there's a bit of mitigating factors in this, that it isn't just about Duff. I think there's accountability at the top. I think there's accountability for the players to take. And I think sometimes managers can be made scapegoats for issues that are not always under their control. So I know we've got different opinions, which is great because that's what we love about football. We're civilised people, going to have a good chat about it. But in my opinion, do I think it's the right decision for Town in the long term? No.
Chris, we spoke earlier, but obviously, your reaction to what has been an interesting day at the Terriers.
Yeah, not surprised just because of the amount of pressure and the noise that was coming out from the fan base and has been coming out for what feels like weeks and weeks and weeks. I kind of sit somewhere in the middle, to be honest, between Kaine and Lou. Not that I wanted to get splinters in my backside, but I can see both sides of it. You know, when things aren't going right, fans always want change. However, there has to come a point where, you know, you look at the mitigating factors. I mean, the stubbornness on formation is one they want to pick up on, because you see this at the top. This isn't just a Michael Duff thing. This is just football now. You've only got to look at the way that Spurs have been this season under Ange Postecoglou and how adamant he's been on playing that style when they've been getting tonked left, right, and centre. And you only look at bloody Amorim at United, like, oh, you know, football is going to be played my way, come a hell of high water, and it isn't working. But it's what modern coaching is now. But I almost feel like Duff has got a far more of a, you know, there's a lot more mitigating circumstances for Duff at League One level than there is for either of those two at the top, and yet they're still in jobs. The injuries, I mean, look, I said to you earlier, and I said when Joe Taylor signed back in January was like, oh, well, give it a game or two and he'll be out for a few weeks with injury. I didn't actually expect that to come true. That's not my fault. Don't blame me. It's one of them. I can see both sides. I just don't. I get the impression that from a Town's perspective that going forward, yes, they've made this decision that a lot of Town fans wanted, but what's the point in making it if a lot of the fans don't necessarily trust those at the top to make the right decision of who's to come next? Because, you know, if you'd have stuck with Duff and say you'd have missed out on the playoffs, you know, by a couple of points, whatever, finished 7th or 8th, at least he then has the summer to get more of a squad of players that wasn't his at the start out and more chance to put a stamp on it. Like they always say that managers need at least 3 or 4 windows to kind of really put their stamp on a squad. And Duff has had, what, two windows and that's it. And has been able to get rid of so few of that relegated sack of crap that came down that, you know, he's not really able to put that much of a stamp on it. And again, and I know we're going to come on to this, you've got to put an element of blame on the recruitment structure and whatever lack of due diligence he's put on the physical condition of players that come through the door and sign at Town.
Yeah, thanks for everybody getting involved. Please do like and subscribe and share the channel. Obviously, it's fantastic that we've built a bit of a following. You know, me, Kaine and Cal, even from Australia, where Jed, our Bondi mate, has got in touch. Obviously, good morning there. He took it into his cornflakes. But we've got Blue Terrier 19 here, Worthington's Barmy Army. Jed from Bondi, morning boys. Here we go again. We sleepwalked yet again into the never-ending shit show that is Huddersfield Town. I mean, that's honest from Jed. We got Paul Tyndall, Cartwright still here, so it's pointless if he's allowed to bring in another manager. James, who's a regular contributor to the show, says, I get Kaine's earlier point, but I do think it's harsh sacking Duff without the Cartwright has brought in. It's a possible different story. However, looks like player power again. So they do not seem to be asked. Yesterday did Taylor for a while. Obviously we've got Ian, who's a regular contributor to the show. Any early odds on new managers? Well, we'll come on to that. Blue Terrier 19 says bring back Mark Fotheringham.
Spot on. Bring back Fotheringham. That solves everything.
No, that solves absolutely nothing, and in fact makes the situation worse. I'll just quickly read out the statement from Huddersfield Town. Obviously, we've seen today. So Huddersfield Town can confirm that Michael Duff has been relieved of his duties as was made after Saturday's Sky Bet League 1 defeat to Bristol. Owner chairman Kevin Nagle has commented, and interestingly, he is the only one to have commented. He says, "This is not a decision that I have taken lightly. I really like Michael as a person, and I know how diligently he has worked for the club since he was appointed as head coach in the summer. So we've all been desperate for him to succeed. However, our results on the pitch since the turn of the year have simply not been good enough. It's true that we've had an unprecedented injury situation to contend with, particularly recently, but I believe that the resources we have available are capable of more than 4 wins we've registered in our last 15 games. I feel we must make this change now to register our challenge for promotion. I want to thank Michael and I wish him all the best for the future." Kaine, there's a lot to take out of that statement, even though it's quite short. But the fact that Mark Cartwright, and we'll talk about him slightly in detail a little bit later, but it's quite interesting that he's not commented.
Well, yeah, it is quite interesting, but I think also it's good to see the chairman, you know. Not only did we mention it last week about his interview at the beginning of the season, and they did another interview again with BBC Radio Leeds last week, and it is on him. You know, he's the one who makes these appointments and everything's agreed by the chairman. And I think because of the mixed reaction that you're getting from people. Is it a shock? Is it not a shock? For the chairman to come out and say something is probably the right thing. You don't need anybody else to make comments. We're seeing statements all the time about a signing, and you get a comment from the chairman, you get a comment from the sporting director, you get a comment from the whoever else, and then another comment from this. I don't need to know all that. That one is a very short, sweet, we need to make a change. I don't need to hear from Mark Cartwright about that one. The chairman has the club's best interest at heart. And I think one of the other reasons for that is because Mr. Cartwright is on his last warning in terms of making the right decision. And I know we're going to come on to that one, but I don't need to know what Mr. Cartwright has to say about Michael Duff, because that's a mistake that he's made in bringing him in. And I think by just having Mr. Nagel writing up on this statement speaks volumes and tells all the Town fans that this is it. This is his last chance now to do something right. Because I am taking control of this club again, and I'm making my decisions.
Callum, what was your thoughts on the fact that we haven't seen Cartwright, speaking a statement? Literally, you would expect the director of football and the man that brought the manager in, and has brought in the last 3 managers to the football club. You would expect him to be talking on the statement.
You would, unless you were trying deliberately to send a message, because there's been a statement from either Mark Cartwright and Jake Edwards. Is it Jake Edwards? I think it is.
Yeah. Jake Edwards.
That there's been a comment either from one or both of them on every player that we've signed, on every new investment that we've announced. Everything that we've announced to the fans has had one or both of their names on it, apart from this, which has had Kevin Nagel's name solely. So that is evidently a message. It's not even subtle. It's just a message to say, look, I am here. I am in charge of this football club. It's my money. It's my football club. And ultimately, the buck stops with me, I think, is the message that we're supposed to take from it. However,
and are you pleased with that message? Are you pleased with how that's been,
Absolutely. Although I do agree with Kaine in that it's probably a last warning. But I think we're beyond that now. I think we're beyond last warning. Duff should have been the last warning, and that hasn't worked. Let's face it, we are one of the bigger teams in this division. If we can't attract a manager and then attract the squad to suit that manager and then fix any issues that come up during the season and ultimately be up there where we should be, then that is on Cartwright as well, as director of whatever he's a director of injuries.
This is why we have your own, Cal, because you just cut the tension with a butter knife fight.
Ultimately, it's his job, but he is the hire of the chairman. So is Kevin Nagel releasing a statement saying, I don't trust you anymore to speak on these matters? And if that's the case, then we are in trouble.
Do you reckon? Because I was looking down at the Mac earlier, and there's a lot of Town fans that are kind of reading between the lines and are like, is this going to mean that Cartwright's out on his ass sooner rather than later, sort of thing? Is that, is it gone far enough when Kev's going to get rid? Reading between the lines. Do you reckon that is the case? I mean, I know I'll say again, from the outside looking in as a neutral, that so much of the anger over the last, 18 months or so has been kind of aimed in Cartwright's direction, understandably so. Do you reckon this is the kind of signal that, it might even end up not necessarily being last warning, but time's running out for him completely, as far as Kev's concerned?
Yeah, if he don't make the right decision with the next manager. I mean,
but all right, this is my thing, though. Given his track record, why should he get the say on picking the next manager? Why should he have the involvement? Surely to Christ, Kev can look at this now and say, your track record is appalling. You're not up to scratch. Do
you not think maybe this is the plan, because this fits perfectly with giving it Worthy till the end of the season?
Yeah.
To get rid of Mark Cartwright today, appoint a new sporting director, have him in the off-season pick a new manager.
Yeah,
but that needs to happen, in my opinion, Cal. That needs to happen now. So, like, there's no point in having Mark.
That we've got rid of Mark Cartwright now.
In the next week or so, and then the new guy has 10 games, which is what,
I'm calling for his head. I don't care. I want Cartwright out.
I can't wait for literally this time tomorrow when we've had to all jump back on the Monday night stream because it's Town Talk. Cartwright sacked by Terriers. Like,
no, in Town it'll be Town Talk. Cartwright rehired into 7 different job roles.
Cartwright takes over as manager.
Just to just so I don't waste Lou's banners because he's put a lot of time into these. So I want to go on the subject of where has it gone wrong for Michael Duff, Kaine? And now I know exactly the 2 words you're going to say here: system and formation. But yeah, if you could just sum up like your thoughts of why has it gone wrong for Duff?
System, formation.
Right, Lou, your turn.
He's been playing a very defensive formation all year, and you leave yourself very open. When Town fans have been behind the team, when Town have had success over recent years, it's when they've been in the face of the opposition. Under Wagner, under Corberan, even when Worthington was in charge last time for a few games, Town were up in the opposition's faces, pressing high, forcing teams to have to go long. What we're seeing at the moment, or what we have seen all year, is teams come to the John Smith Stadium and go, oh, this is pretty easy. We'll be able to play out from the back. We'll be able to get it up towards the middle of the park, and then we'll just knock it down the channel for them to chase. And that is literally the game plan against most teams that Town have played this year, because that's how they get points. That's how they've won games, by doing that, and it's been very easy. Teams that haven't done that have got some really poor analysts looking at opposition. But it's the case of you 3 centre halves covering across the width of the field, and then your wing backs. That's 5 at the back. And I said this last podcast, Steve, about in terms of when you're on the attack, you don't have many players up there. You're aiming for 2 players in the box, and I saw it again at the weekend. There were 2 players in the box most of the time when Sorensen or Ruskin had the ball in a crossing opportunity. Chua playing at 10 was coming short outside the area. The 2 midfielders in the middle of the park, your back 3 back there, your 2 wing backs nowhere near the box looking to cross in. So you're aiming for 2 players there. And then still managing to lose games despite the fact that you're in a defensive formation. Mm. And we can talk about what Cartwright's done, all this kind of stuff, and has he made right decisions here, there, and wherever for the players that he's brought in, managers that he's brought in. And I know we're going to come on to that, but at the end of the day, the performances are with a manager. The injuries that they're had, you've got to look at the manager. Town have been so stretched in most games that they've played because, when they've had possession, a lot of teams that they're up against are just sitting back and holding, making sure that Town don't score because they've got firepower. Or they think they've got firepower because on paper it says they've got firepower because how much they've spent on this player, how much they've spent on that player, the wages that they're playing, because they're a big club, so teams will sit back there. So once they went to go clear that ball and it goes down the other line, and you've got Balker who's coming back from injury every other week having to sprint again and his muscle goes, Kasuma having to work extra hard in the middle of the park, Sorensen up and down the lines, Ruskin, I'm surprised he's still playing at the moment, Paul, had with injuries that he's had up and down them wings. The where it's gone wrong for him is a stubbornness to play that formation when it's not worked. And again, I think a lot of fans want to see performances, they want something to get behind. If Michael Duff had good performances for 80% of the games this year, he would have still been in charge and people would have backed him. But the fact is, it has been dull. It's been boring. It's been low tempo. They've barely attacked, or when they have, it's been poor quality. And he said that it's been poor quality a lot of the time. These lads are professional footballers, get paid £1,000 a week. You cannot have poor quality. And even when you look at the set pieces, whose idea is it to aim for the first man every time? And it doesn't beat the first man. Where's that coming from? Because I'm not telling all my players to go to the first man each time for it to be cleared each time and shooting from the edge of the area. It's because they're desperate. They're desperate for something because it's not been there. The fans probably, they're booing. I think the other week they booed Michael Duff, not the players. At the weekend, probably a bit of both because they want a performance there either. But it showed against that Wrexham game. There was half a performance there and the fans were behind them. They didn't win, but the fans were behind them because there was half a performance there. And again, that tells you a lot about what Michael Duff's been doing.
Just want to bring other people in again. Mark Harrison makes a point. In time, I think Duff would have given us success, although he has made mistakes. He needed, and his successor needs to be better support from above. Jed again, Duff in recent past matches has mentioned how some players were mentally fragile, something they have been battling all season. In fact, I would say the last 3 seasons, to be honest, Jed. Ian as well has put, did Cartwright comment when previous managers were sacked? Yes, he did.
I've just done some research into this.
All right, go on, Cal.
When Warnock was let go and when Moore was let go, but he didn't when Brighton Writer was let go.
All right, interesting. Terry 930 Cartwright. Cartwright has to be gone early next week. He can't pick the next boss and be allowed the summer transfer window. And Blue Teddy 19. Duff doesn't know what to do when 3-5-2 isn't working, which is a fair point that Kaine has made pretty much on every podcast so far this season. I'm not going to lie. So to be fair to him, and James says, I've tried to be patient for Cartwright, but in thinking it's surely just another nub under verdict from Town fans again. However, he signed. Yeah, we get the point. We get the point. Callum, it brings it onto the next band.
This is why you should proofread comments, Steve, before you put them on the screen, mate.
This is true. Thanks, James, for your contribution. Go on to the next banner. Lou, do you think that Duff has been used as a scapegoat? Because we had one of the comments there saying about the players being mentally fragile, and I think that has been the case for far too long, multiple seasons. Do you think Duff's been used as a scapegoat?
Depends what you mean by scapegoat. Do I think he's been made out to dry? No, because he could have, like Kaine said, I think both the chaps have made some really good points. Possibly could have done better with what they've got. But there's definitely, for me, an underlying feeling that I don't know. I don't ever say what you think, Kaine and Cal, because you know better than me. Did it ever seem the right fit? Did it ever seem the right fit that Michael Duff coming into Huddersfield was ever going to be a success? Because for me, it never felt like a jigsaw piece that fit into the right place for me. And I think, listen, I think a bit more long term, and I get this kind of notion that it's just not worked. I 100% get that, but I don't know. From your guys' perspective, did you ever feel it was going to work out?
No.
That
managers who aren't in a job aren't in a job for a reason. I saw him what he did at Swansea when he was with Barnsley. Did great, didn't go up. Went to Swansea, did okay for a week or two, and then it would just pour. In fact, I think sorry, Cal.
Given what I've heard Swansea fans now saying about his time at Swansea, and having concluded his time at Huddersfield Town, I think comparing the two, it feels very similar. His time, I think he will look back on his time here and his time at Swansea as two very similar sort of periods in his career. Ultimately, I don't think he was ever going to be successful.
See, that it surprised me a bit, and the reason why I'm saying this goes back to my point earlier, where the board haven't really backed themselves by appointing somebody like Michael Duff, whether fans etc. believe he's right the man or not. At that moment in time, the board felt that he was the right man for the job for the next potentially 2 years, 3 years, whatever that looks like.
I think the board at the time of his hire were looking to steady the ship because they got it wrong in the way that they let Warnock go. Then they got it wrong in hiring Andre Brighton-Writer. So they were terrified of getting this one wrong. So a safe pair of hands in an English manager that knows League One. They put all their eggs in that basket with Michael Duff, and ultimately, it's led us down the garden path a little bit.
I disagree with that though, because I agree with the first part, Cal, where you said about the sort of there was so much pressure because of the way that they got rid of Warnock. The Darren Moore management stint was absolutely abysmal. I think it's more abysmal than what we've gone through with Duff, because genuinely I had no connection to Darren Moore at all. I felt so emotionless in that whole period. Brian Wright just wasn't the right fit, because I don't really think he ever thought there was a long-term future for him at the football.
Controversially, I think he was a better manager than our squad needed.
But probably
them to do things that they weren't capable of at the time.
But I disagree in the fact that Lou posed the question and said, was Duff the right jigsaw piece? The board said that they wanted a defined style of football, which Duff did have at all his clubs. All right, didn't work.
Well, it does have it. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, but that's not the point. But the point that I'm making is the board said that they wanted a style of football which we didn't have under the three previous managers. They wanted a long-term vision, which Duff seemingly wanted to have. I agree that it's not worked, but I do think out of the four managers that have been under Nagel, he's been the most hamstrung with injuries and with off-field recruitment issues.
But he's also had the most money.
Yeah, but it's not. But has he decided how he wants to spend that money?
And this is where it comes back to Cartwright and Jake Edwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if he hasn't, then we know we need to get pitchforks and torches and start heading in that direction.
What I will say is Duff's appointment at Town was a lot more logical to me than Duff's appointment at Swansea.
Yeah.
Because whilst Duff had done well at Barnsley, it was still quite a physical, at times very direct style of play. Swansea had been a club where they were renowned for playing good football in the Premier League. They come down, there was the expectation from supporters to do the same as what had gone before. With Town, it's a little bit different. I'm not kind of, Duff was more logical at a working class northern club than he was at Swansea with the style of play that they wanted. It should have been a good fit. I still think it should have been a good fit. And you know what? Look, I know it's easy to say, but I'm going to come back to the injuries thing. If this was a perfect world and injuries hadn't have happened, I still think you'd be sitting top three comfortably, because the players would have been there. They wanted for the system. They would have got the system, because it would have been the majority of that side would have been the players that he brought in, had come in under his tenure. And I'll say, if injuries hadn't have worked, I don't think we'd be sat here at all. I think we'd be sat here saying, with 10 games to go, can you go through and win the title or get the automatic spot? I really do. I really do. And I can tell, Kane, I can tell. But I just don't get, like, if Spurs fans can overlook the fucking injury situation there to stick with Ange, then surely in League One, after the chaos of the last three appointments and relegation, at some point stability has got to come. And here's another just quick point to put out: absolute worst case scenario, you stuck with Duff and finished 7th. Is that the end of the world? You're Huddersfield Town, like big club at the level, but it's still not like, a United being in relegation danger of the Prem. It's levels. And yes, you've had a lot of success over the last few years and the years in the Premier League and then a Championship club. But, if this doesn't work under Worthington, you're no further forward, I don't think. I think you'd actually be more further in the long-term project if you'd have stuck with Duff and missed out on the playoffs than going for this change of manager again, where potentially it's the same hierarchy making the appointment, potentially not. It remains to be seen.
Ken?
Performances haven't been good enough all year, and I don't think you've got to at least have 50% of your games having a good performance to pick up your results. Now, yeah, they've picked up results and at a certain time where they had a bit of confidence. Confidence has been shot. And it's all right, you can have all the players available to you. But if they're not working right together and then you get a loss, you get a second loss, then a third, and you go, where's my next one coming from? You know,
But
regardless of what...
He hasn't had that squad. He hasn't had those players.
He hasn't, but he's had a big squad this year. He's had a big squad. It's a squad game. We see that in every kind of league about a squad game, and that everybody who goes out on that field should know what they're doing. But the problem is they don't.
But the vast majority of that squad was slated under Brighton, right, to the previous manager as being not up to scratch, poor attitudes, and not looking arsed. So, you know, he's got a big squad, but if it's a big squad of crap, it doesn't make much difference.
What will be interesting to see, I think, is the amount of players that now return from injury quite quickly. Like we saw under Warnock, Danny Ward was suddenly Lazarus and he returned from a really long injury and was able to play. I genuinely think we are going to see a lot of players come back from injury because, like I said at the start, they've got nothing to lose now.
So then why have fans booed Duff and then potentially not booed players if that's the case? So for what's happened over in recent years, because the players have got to be made accountable for some of this, what's happened over the past couple of years. And I know what you said earlier, Cal, in terms of players coming back and potentially playing for Duff, etc. But it's madness. It's absolutely madness. Outside looking in. Don't get me wrong. I've not seen, a lot of Town games. I've been there to watch a couple. One this season, obviously with Chris, we've seen you as well. But when you look at the situation that Duff was trying to do with a limited squad, that he's not going to build a squad in one window. You can't do it. You physically can't do it. If he's going to build a squad of his own, it's going to take 3-4 windows. So you either back him like you should have done, or you don't appoint somebody like that.
So are we saying
you know what you're going to get with Duff? You know exactly what you're going to get, his style of play, the way he works. But like you said, guys, at the top from Town perspective, I just find it baffling how stats-wise you're looking at. I've just had a look before we came on, and I know stats can tell a certain story. I get it. Performances haven't been great, 100% get it. But like big chances in the top three, big chances you've missed your top. And then you go and sign like Dion Charles, who has scored goals in this league, albeit he's not scored this. I get it. He's not scored so far for Town, but and you've got Joe Taylor, and you've got a couple others on there. So he's tried to rectify that. I know you've not scored yet, but listen, it's play the long game a little bit on it. So where I don't understand how Duff can get booed for this. I mean, the players get off scot-free.
If ultimately what you're saying there is that Duff is in charge of who he brings in,
I don't know how it works, being honest. But I guess
if that's the case, and that's why we can't boo Duff, then also he's responsible for the outgoings, and losing the players like Michael Hellick has had a detrimental effect on our defence.
It has. Yeah,
so
I agree.
You can sign all the strikers that you want, but if you're weak at the back, it makes no difference. And if he's responsible for that, then he should shoulder some of the blame there.
I agree. I mean, was it Hellick who left because he felt obviously wanted to move up division and it was coming to the end of that? So, but obviously injuries have crippled you. Injuries absolutely crippled. I can't see many managers going to predict the situation you found yourself in at the back. There's not many teams and managers are going to expect 3-4 centre back to be injured as what you've had.
And he's not the only manager to have this problem, though. Michael Duff is not the only Huddersfield manager to have this injury problem. For me, it sort of started after we had a minor overhaul of the medical team under Dean Hoyle in the sort of last throes of Dean Hoyle's leadership of the club. We had a shake-up of the backroom team. We lost a lot of the medical staff that we had, say, under Wagner, and the medical staff that kept that side so physically fit out the door. We lost John Iger. Do we lose Ian Kirkpatrick as well, who was a physio at the time?
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's a physio now. But we lost a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge of how these players need to train at this club. And we never got that back. And so Duff is not the first manager to suffer with these issues. We had it under Moore. We had it terribly.
The amount, though, Cal. But the amount of injuries
is more now than it was. But the amount of injuries in key positions across the squad, we have had a problem with for 3, 4, possibly even 5 seasons now.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And that's what...
And so we're Scapegoating Duff, aren't we? Duff's been sacked for other mitigating factors in this.
No,
It's not just his fault, is it?
It's not
It's
just that, though, is it? It's also his reluctance to change tactical style when the side are up against it. Look at the Wrexham game. We go 1-0 down, we go flat. We're still playing long balls that haven't worked for 60 minutes. It's a reluctance, a tactical reluctance that ultimately has partly cost him his job. Yes, injuries as well. Yes, decisions from higher ups, transfers not being good enough. Ultimately, there are a mixture of things that have gone wrong for Michael Duff, but he should shoulder some of the blame for one or two of those things.
100%. And I think, to be fair, from what I've seen, I think there's an element that he has. I think he probably may not show it as much as what people would hope that he would. I think he has shouldered a bit of that blame. But I think to the degree where he's been let go of his job so early in the tenure, where there was hope and expectation from the board to see it out for a considerable amount of time rather than just 10 months, I think he's pretty poor. I think in the next year and a half, 2 years, if you'd have stuck, personally, listen, I get it that people disagree. I just think that he would have done a decent job. Listen, and it's hard because when you're supporting a team and you follow it like you guys do, you bleed blue and white, 100% get it. Chris will tell us, guys, and Downs will say, pretty much all of us on the regular Monday show, we didn't have Huddersfield to go up. So, in fairness, has he steadied the ship, actually, for Huddersfield? Probably has, in a weird way.
I don't know, it still feels quite choppy.
Cal's getting seasickness. Kaine, you wanted to come in, I think.
Yeah,
You see from your face, he's absolutely foaming.
Kane's going to put his fist through the screen in a minute.
He's been sacked because it's not been good enough. And it's not been good enough all year. On a terms of a business kind of thing, you've got half your fan base, half your season ticket holders going, I don't want to come to this next year if I have to keep watching that. Because what are you getting? There's no value there. And to have to take 2 or 3 years, Lou, for it to be something decent, you can't wait. You can't wait for that. Long-term objectives are just what are said for media. That's what every manager that comes in, it's it's a long-term objective. Yeah, it's going to be like this. It's going to be like that. Yeah, because that's ideal. But if it's not good enough, it's not good enough. Lou, I believe, are you involved with Bradford Park Avenue, I believe? And I was there when they lost to Liverpool at home at the beginning of the season. And a couple of weeks later, is it Danny Whitaker, who was the manager at the time, got rid because it wasn't good enough. And I know this is a different time in the year, but if you hadn't made that change then, you wouldn't be where you are right now. And Town had to make that change. Is it a little bit too late? I think it's probably they've done it at the right time. Because if they'd have gone a little bit earlier, they've got to give him January, try and get a couple of players back from injury. He's had the opportunity to bring some Cartwright's had the opportunity to bring some players in that he wanted, which was strikers. Didn't want to get rid of the centre half. That's another issue. But again, another opportunity for him to say, I might need to change things up here because I'm having so many injuries. Can you get this kind of player? Can you get that kind of player for me? He didn't, kept it the same way, and it's continued to be poor. And as Chris, as you said earlier, if Town would have kept Michael Duff till the end of the year and they'd have finished 7th, would it have still been bad? Yeah, because the chairman has come out and said to all the Town fans, we're going up this year. We want to go up. That's our aim. So it is a poor. It's a poor way to end things. But they've got the opportunity here to find the right one. I don't want to be looking for a manager who doesn't have a job because he doesn't have a job for a reason. Michael Duff didn't have a job for a reason. Darren Moore didn't have a job for a reason.
You don't want David Wagner back then, no?
Hang on, we'll come on to that.
I was just thinking after 45 minutes, do we start turning to the future now?
Yes. We'll come on to that. But I just, unfortunately, Ken, you are picking on the wrong subject there for Lou on Bradford Park Avenue because we'll be sat here for about 9 hours.
Come on, I've got a list of out of work Georgian Premier League managers and Estonian Premier League managers.
We'll just come on to that. But I do want to play a quick game with Kaine and Cal, to be honest. So in the list of private chat, I've listed all the players that Mark Cartwright has brought in from a permanent basis. We're going to go through them one by one, and I want you to. All I need is one word: bin or success. Right? Bin is obvious. Success is obvious.
Christ, no middle ground. That's extreme.
There's no middle ground, right? There's no middle ground. So, okay, so we'll start with you, Cal, and then we'll go to Kaine, right? Chris Maxwell, bin or success?
Success.
Right, okay, Kaine?
Success.
Okay, Ben Wiles.
Success.
Okay.
Success.
Right, okay. Bojan Radolovic.
Bin.
Success.
Okay. Radinho Bolka.
Success.
Success.
Okay. Reece Healy.
Oh, bin.
Bin his legs.
Success.
Quality
Some of
players.
these, I'm just gonna chuck a couple of bins in just
played in the wrong,
played
in the wrong kind of shape. It's not for him sprinting up and down.
Yeah. Right, okay. I can't believe you said success.
Yeah, it's not for him to use his legs as a footballer.
Exactly, Chris. You're right.
Lasse Sorensen.
Success.
Success.
Oh, they're all successes, and I hate Mark Cartwright.
Mikael Miller. They're not all successes, but we'll get to one of them that you definitely won't think is a success. But Mikael Miller.
Mikael Miller, I think he's a success, but I can't really remember him.
Success.
Okay. Herbie Kaine.
Yeah, success. Oh,
Success.
Yeah, I love the
Anthony
existential
Evans.
crisis that Cal's going through here.
Anthony Evans.
success.
Kaine.
Yeah, success.
Okay. Freddie Ladapo, Cal.
My boy. Get in that bin.
Kaine, if you
Yeah,
dare
bin.
say success.
Bin.
Right, okay. Thank God. Kaine has thrown one in the bin. Ruben Ruskin.
Success.
Don't know.
Good player.
You can't have don't know. You can either have bin or success.
Oh, well, for the interest of balance, then bin.
Okay. Joe Taylor.
Oh, well, he's made
Who?
crisp packets and chewing gum, really. So I don't know.
He's a good finisher.
So is it a bin?
I think it's 3 million in the bin for me.
Right.
I've seen enough quality of him to know he's going to be a success.
All right. Dion Charles.
Miss against Wrexham aside, one would hope success.
Okay, Ken.
Bin.
Right. Okay. So the 4 loans this season, Joe Hodge. It's not an answer.
Oh, bin. I don't care. Bin.
Okay, Ken.
Success.
Right, okay. I know what Kane's going to say for this one. Lomvik.
Bin as well. Get him in the bin.
Bin.
I knew Kane was going to say bin. Chuea.
Bin.
Bin.
And who was the other loan? I can't even remember who the other loan is.
Alan Marshall.
Oh, Marshall, yeah.
The only one that is actually genuinely quite a good success.
Success for both, yeah?
Yeah, success.
Yeah. I like
So mine, I will just run through quickly. Maxwell, success. Ben Wiles, success on stats. Radolovic, bin. Bolka, success when he's not made a paper. Reece Healy.
There's so many caveats to this list already.
Yeah, there really is.
Reece Healy, I wanted it to work, but bin. Lasse Sorensen, success. Mikael Miller, success. Herbie Kaine, if he loses some weight, success. Anthony Evans, success. Freddie Ladapo, one of the worst players I've ever seen. Bin. Ruben Ruskin, success. Will become a good player. Joe Taylor, success. Dion Charles, could be a success if he starts scoring and gets an haircut.
I can't wait to see you, Downsy, challenging Herbie Kaine for his midfield spot if Herbie Kaine needs to lose some timber.
Hey, we're going that way. We are going that way.
I've got more hair than Herbie. Joe Hodge, bin. Lomvik, success, because I know Kaine hates him, so I'm just going to go the opposite. Chuera, don't really know, probably success. And Marshall, success. So
I'll be honest.
It's like kind of out of that list.
I feel like success is too strong a word for this game in the situation. Surely you should have been like bin or keep or something, not necessarily success. I mean, you've been a bit of a liar.
Bin or Jon Worthington. There's no in between.
Or Dennis Law. Yeah, I think out of that list, though, there's about maybe 7, 8 players that we've all agreed that are a success, but yet we all want Mark Cartwright out of the club. It's mad. It's mental.
Ultimately,
for me, it's the manager decisions. It's the
not
way
his player hires that I have such a problem with.
Yeah.
Except for Freddie
managerial decisions, which are actually more important than player acquisitions for me.
But we said this a few weeks ago, Steve, when you remember I had that bit of a rant in terms of who's making the decision on how the team plays.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, I think Lou, I think you said it earlier on about in terms of having an identity and what is the identity, what is the blueprint. You're absolutely right. They've got to have one, but there hasn't been one because it keeps chopping and changing with how they're going to play. And that you play recruitment is based on how you're going to play and who makes that decision. For me, it has to come from the sporting director. That for me is how you're going to play. And you'd say to your manager or your head coach who comes in, we want to play this kind of way because this is the kind of player that we're recruiting to play in this position, to do this, to do that. Adapt it however you want, but it needs to look something like this. But unfortunately, what they've done is gone to Warnock's come in and just tried to win games the way Warnock does. That's absolutely fine. Darren Moore came in and, well, didn't really do anything. Riker came in and it was too late for him. Duff's come in and it's just not worked for him. But
it does seem they've signed for Duff, though, haven't they? Like, because there was the obvious 3-5-2, and they have signed for Duff.
Yeah.
But again,
which makes the argument to get rid of him even stronger.
They signed for Duff, but then everyone that they have signed in the right positions for Duff's system to work has then been crocked.
Yeah, but and again, Chris, though, you can sign for Duff, which is fine, but you've been paying players who haven't played. Why not get rid of Josh Ruffles if you're not going to play with a left back? Okay, they've needed him the last few games because of injuries. That's the only reason he's been playing, but he's still been playing out of position. Josh Karoma isn't a striker, as yet has played striker and left wing back. He's a left winger. If you're not going to play, if you're going to play a certain system, get rid of him. But instead, that they haven't, and this is where there's a bit of lack of direction or communication of what the club want and what the manager wants. You have to be all on the same page, and they haven't been. And
I do get the impression that it must, I mean, trying to be Mark Cartwright offloading players last summer must have been a godforsaken nightmare. Like, because we don't want these players. Does anybody else want them? Nah, you're all right. We can keep them. And that's the thing.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And listen, with respect to Town, it's not been great for the past few years, has it? So when you've got a squad that's been failing and struggling at wrong end of the table and been slipping and sliding all over the shop, who's going to pick up players that are kind of not even really regularly playing for Town? Who are going to go and who's going to pay the wages? It's not happening.
Things like wingers in wing-back roles. I've seen that at both the other clubs we're involved with. Like Lincoln have been doing it with Rico Hackett, who was a left winger. He's been playing left wing-back all season. And I've seen it at Rochdale with a lad who was a right winger, been playing left wing-back all season. To be fair to them, in their cases, it has worked for the most part. But obviously with Karoma, it's not necessarily been a success for him to be a wing-back.
No, and again, this is where you've got to know what's going on there. And I think that you've got to get a real style of how you want to be, create that identity, and go back to what Town fans have enjoyed over the successful periods under Wagner, under Corberan, where it was good football, it was well structured, and everybody knew what was going on. And we're at a point now where I don't even think the players knew what was going on. The pressing again from the front three, front two, whatever it was, has been poor over the last couple of games because there just doesn't seem to be that idea of what's happening. And this is for me, again, I think this is Mark Cartwright's last chance because, as we just mentioned, the players that he brought in, they've not been bad players. He's not brought in a lot of bad players. It's the managers which have been poor. And he has to get it right now. And then otherwise, that's it. Because, as we've all said, how many chances do you want to get? But there has been a lot of harsh words for me in terms of Cartwright because the players that he's brought in have been good. But in terms of the way the team has been played and their injuries, that for me is down to the manager. And that's why he's gone.
I knew we'd
Okay.
disagree at some point tonight, Kane.
Go,
It's like
Cal,
good
did you want to
players,
make a
but
point?
They've got knackered legs.
I agree with you in so much as there's been a lot of harsh words about Cartwright, but that was tinged with not finishing the sentence, which is some of them were undeserved, which I disagree with. I believe that they are deserved. And if he's not carrying his little brown box out of HD1 tomorrow, I will not be a happy boy.
Okay, well, we want to keep Cal happy, so let's see whether that happens. Let's move the conversation on, because otherwise we'll be here till midnight, and Chris needs to get off to have some tea.
Not all about Chris, remember.
So Worthington has been appointed. I just want to quickly read the statement with a quote here, which we've very kindly put on screen for everybody. Huddersfield Town has today confirmed that Academy manager Jon Worthington will fulfil the role of interim head coach of the first team for the remainder of the season. 41-year-old Worthington begins his role with immediate effect and will be in the dugout for the John Smith Stadium for our next Sky Bet League One fixture against Crawley Town on Saturday 15th, kicking off at 3 p.m. Previously overseeing first team matters as caretaker basis between 29th of January 2024 and 18th of January 2024 in the Sky Bet Championship last season, Worthington's side collected 6 points and scored 9 times in those 4 games, which included a memorable 4-0 home victory over Sheffield Wednesday, which Cal remembered earlier on. Former club captain, Worthington represented Town 195 times between 2002 and 9 and was part of the side that secured promotion from Sky Bet League 2 to Sky Bet League 1 playoffs, where we beat Mansfield. He said, Huddersfield Town is my club and I'm honoured to be coaching for the first time between now and to the end of the season. We have 10 important matches to come with plenty of points remaining to play for and every possibility still open to us. As it is each day, my full focus and energy will be spent during wherever possible I can help the club for the best version of itself. In this time, my goal is to repay the faith and trust that Kevin Nagle, Jake Edwards and Mark Cartwright has shown in me and give Town supporters pride in their team and club. See you all at the John Smith Stadium on Saturday afternoon. In saying that then, so Jon Worthington's going to be in charge for the next 10 matches. Callum, is that right that he gets 10 matches? And what happens if we lose the next 3?
Nothing. In hiring Jon Worthington, we have resigned this season to the history books. No matter what happens, that's essentially what the board have done.
Okay.
They've said, right, okay, there we don't get playoffs. That's okay. We do get playoffs. That's okay. Whatever happens, Worthington will be the manager at the end of it. Okay. I think a lot of Town fans, myself included, I agree that that's probably at this point that is the right approach.
Okay, Kaine?
Yeah, I think that's. I think it's a great decision. I think there's more of a chance of Town getting in the playoffs now with Jon Worthington there is with Michael Duff.
Take the pressure off.
Yeah, like I said, there's no pressure. I don't think Town were going to be in the playoffs. Well, I don't think Town were going to go up with Michael Duff in charge. Playoffs at the moment was looking harsh. And it might have been very tough for Town to stay in there until the end of the year, or get back up in there. And I think now with Worthington, I think there's going to be a huge weight lifted off the shoulders of everybody and gone, well, we didn't think it was going to happen. So now, why not just go for it? Why not just go for it? Because we put all his eggs in the basket for Michael Duff to do it. That didn't happen. So let's go make an omelette and get in the playoffs with Michael Duff, with Jonathan Worthington. I generally think it's the right thing. With 10 games to go, if he loses the next 3, so what? As Cal said, it just seems as if they've kind of given up on the year already, but I don't think they've given up on the year. I think that's why they've given it to Worthington for the last 10 games and say, this is your focus. Go make it happen. And I generally think they believe in him.
Do just to kind of interject that, Steve, a question for you three, really. Do any of you see, like, hypothetically, this works out well, Town make the playoffs, Town go up? Is Worthington even off the back of 10 games, where obviously will be classed as big success, do any of you see him as, A, for a start, wanting the job long term as first team manager at this stage? And do you think he'd be the right appointment for the Championship? Do you think he'd be the right appointment if he, say he made the playoffs but then lost in the semi-finals or something? Would you see him as a good option for next season?
The answer to that question for me is no to all of them.
Fair.
Okay, so answer to me is I don't think he wants the job.
Fair
I think
enough.
he's quite happy with being in the academy as a local lad. You've got to think, if he steps up to that manager role and don't work out, loses his job,
Yeah,
potential having to move around. He's very happy where he is, and he's doing a great job in the academy. And I think he'll be happy staying that. Would I think he's the right appointment if Town were to go up? Yeah, I think he would. Do I think he'd be the right appointment if Town were still in League One next season? Yeah, I would. But I also feel as if he's the right man to steady the ship when needs be, here and there. Stick to his role in the academy, which he loves to do. Like I said, he lives 10 minutes away from the training ground on a good day without any traffic. You know what I mean? He's local lad.
Yeah.
He's quite happy with where he's at. And I think that's the right thing for him. I can see him doing the job. I don't think he wants to.
But a massive hang on, just to interject there, a massive reason why he doesn't want the job permanently, Kaine, is because he saw what happened to his mate Danny Schofield, who had the job previously to him, and he got absolutely ripped to crap for it. And Danny's status is in the bin, but with Town fans, because obviously we still really appreciate like what he did and all. But I think that's been tarnished. And I don't think Jon Worthington really wants that to happen. So I can see him being the Mark Lillis role. Mark Lillis did it for years, didn't he?
Yeah.
Cal?
I ultimately think that the best thing for him would be to stay what he's doing, because he likes what he's doing. Clearly, he thinks that he can do a job when he comes in, but he doesn't want the job full time. I think that's the best thing for us as a club as well, because we're going to need somebody like that knows what the fans expect. When we go through the next manager and the next manager, whether that's in 2 years, 6 months, 5 years, 10 years, we're going to need somebody that knows the club to bring it back down to earth when it all goes wrong again, because it's football and that's what it does.
That's what happens, yeah.
Obviously, Kaine, just to touch on the formation that Worthy will play. He was our formation god.
Yeah, it'll be between a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-3-3. Very similar formations, just depend on the opposition, how you want to attack, what's going on in the game. The fluidity between them two formations are just ideal for what Town need. It's absolutely ideal.
Lou, let's talk about future without Worthington. Like if he goes back to the academy job once this 10 games is done, whether we go up or down. Chuck some names in there who you think might be good to take over. BD has said Ryan Lowe could be a favourite. I think that is probably a realistic and good shout. Other names in the hat are Paul Warne.
Kaine disagrees.
Kaine disagrees, but we'll come to Kaine.
I disagree too.
We'll come to Kaine in a minute. Other names that have been mentioned are Paul Warne and Rob Edwards, ex-Luton manager.
Can I just, before you come on to this, there's two very different situations, because appointing for the Championship will get you such a potentially higher caliber of manager than appointing for League One. It's like shopping. It's the difference between shopping in Waitrose and Netto in terms of managerial levels, isn't it? There's a big difference between where you're appointing for.
Yeah, but let's just keep it simple. Why is it not turn into an half-hour conversation? Lou, just name a few names that you think would take the job.
Well, I'll caveat it depends who's in charge at the top, what they want from the style of play and what they want Huddersfield Town to look like. Do they want a winning team that's going to be short-term fix and get Huddersfield up next season? Or do they want a style of football and an identity that has pretty footballing, free-flowing football that plays, like Kaine said, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, gets bums off seats, gets season tickets in? What do you want? I don't know. And it depends whether Cartwright's going to be there or not. Names, crikey, where do you even start? who wants to go in at the moment, Huddersfield Town, when you've had 4 managers in 18 months, Poyes and Chalice. Reason why you might want to go in it is because you get an half-decent payout, let's be honest. So that's going to be at the back of the minds of the board and those that are going in and throwing a hat in the ring. Is it a prestigious job? Yes, because Huddersfield Town carries a name, and like the chaps have said, it carries a bit of gravitas to League One. But along with that comes the expectation that you're going to be up there at thereabouts at the right end of the table. Because anything below what you are now is going to be a failure, because at the moment, getting rid of Duff is classing this moment in time as a failure. The names that you're probably looking at, crikey, where do you even go? Gary O'Neill's probably out the shop window because it's too low in League One. Sean Dyche is out the window because it's League One. I think Ryan Lowe would not do a job. Can you afford to get somebody out of a job in League One? Yes. Will they go to Huddersfield Town? Question mark. I know you guys earlier said Richie Wellens. I don't think he's a good appointment at all, if I'm being honest, in the slightest. Is anybody going to drop down for the Championship to League One if the money's right? And unfortunately, I agree with Kaine. The managers who are out of a job are the ones that you're going to be probably looking at this moment in time. I think you're struggling. Steve Cooper, he won't drop to League One. Russell Martin won't drop to League One either.
I think
it's expectations of where you want to go, guys, and I think you are going to be looking at a very limited pool of coaches and managers of what you want to get, which is why, unfortunately, and I get the sentiment, 100% get it, the short-termism, but I'm struggling to see really outstanding candidates out there, and that's why I personally would have just kept Duff just to see how we'd get on at the beginning of next season, quarter of the way through it, and evaluate what the market looks like. Because in my opinion, I don't think the market's strong in terms of managers that can take Town forward.
I think the highest caliber of manager, the highest caliber of manager out there, and one that I would be interested in getting is Rob Edwards, because I think there's more going behind the scenes at Luton than just what's happened with him, to be honest.
Would he go to Huddersfield in League One at the moment? Would he do?
I think he would, because I don't see him as, he never come across as like he's been there, and he's been like in in terms of the lower league jobs. I mean, he never thought he was going to get Luton to the Premier League. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? He took the job, and he did all right. He got harshly sacked at Watford. So, I don't think...
Playing devil's advocate, Steve, I don't think he's all that.
No, that's
I know
fine.
He got Luton promoted. I know he got Luton promoted, and listen, he did a great job at Luton to get him up there. But they went down, people big Luton up. I thought they were poor in the Premier League. I know they're, inverted commas, a smaller club than others, but I don't think they really set it on light. And watch what they did in the Championship. Didn't really succeed at Watford, but again, you're walking into a position which is short term. So maybe, listen, joking aside, it might be the right job for him, because at the moment, Huddersfield Town is a short term job. But do I think he's the right man to take Huddersfield Town to the Championship? No, I don't.
Fair enough. Chris, you were going to come in. What were you going to say? Something?
Yeah, I mean, again, a little bit from what we were talking about earlier, kind of looking at who's available into the out of work managers. And we said before, and we talked for a little bit after we'd wrapped the stream up earlier, and said it's not necessarily an inspirational list of names that come to mind, but the ones that are kind of available now or potentially to sign up at the end of the season. Obviously, Rob Edwards, as you mentioned, Luke Williams, who left the Swansea job about a month or so ago. Paul Warren obviously took Derby up. Des Buckingham, who took Oxford United up, is the younger end of the spectrum. I'm going to say it because I know Downsville hates it, and I suspect it's the same from Kaine and Cal as well. Ian Everett's out of a job. He did all right at Bolton for a little while, but not anymore. I forgot how much you hate him as well, Lou. But this is the problem, though, because
I don't see anybody out there who is screaming, I want him to be Huddersfield Town manager. I just don't see it.
No, Kaine, what? Yeah. Anybody jumping out from you?
Yeah, there's no one personally. What I want the board to look for is someone with plan A, plan B, plan C, and a bit of go forward in them, in the faces of the opposition. I don't want to see a team sit back and allow opposition to come at them. I want them in the faces. Look, this League One is pretty poor. the standard is not great. I can't believe how bad it actually is. I've watched games in League Two commentating on Bradford, and I thought that were bad. Some of the quality there. Championship, obviously, Prem, commentating games like that. Coming down to League One, I thought it'd be all right. It's not. There's some really poor teams. It's not hard to go and win a game in League One when you've got players like Huddersfield Town have. So for me, the board needs to be looking at someone who's going to be in the face of the opposition, play high tempo, and want to get that ball forward, providing they've got a plan A, plan B, and plan C. Because Michael Duff had a plan A, and it will low tempo, and that doesn't get you off the seat. I think that's what Town need.
Thing though is that might be what I mean. I'll be honest, mate. What you've described there is what every single EFL fan wants from a manager of their club. Now, the problem is that doesn't exist. Or if it does, they're usually already managing Premier League Championship clubs, the ones that have got the bright ideas of how to change things and tweak things and play the attractive football, because that's what gets you the higher moves. This is, I hate to say it, this is the problem. It's going to be a disappointing because the pot to piss in is very small for Town at the moment, it seems. Look, we're going through the names we've got, and this is why people are going to obviously hark back for David Wagner, or you're looking at out-of-work managers. I can't even think of that many managers. I mean, I say many.
You know,
any manager that fits the bill of what you've described there, who's in work in the EFL that would move to Town.
You know who I could see potentially going to you guys, and it might not be well liked. Nigel Pearson.
Christ. Jesus wept.
That went down well, Lou.
No, listen, I agree. I'm not his greatest fan either. But he's had track record in League One. He is a bit of a disciplinarian, a bit of a leader, and he might sort some potential player things out. Do I think he'd get bums off seats? No. Do I think he'd be well liked by fans? Probably not. But he feels like he's another safe pair of hands. So in my opinion, again, offers it sounds. Would you get rid of Pearson? Would you get Pearson ahead of Duff? Probably like for like, aren't they?
That's exactly what people said before we hired Duff, though, that he wouldn't get bums off seats, but that he'd steady the ship. And look where we are now.
I know. I agree, but it seems to be. That's kind of the pot you're playing in, aren't you?
This is the market, because unless you can go, like for example, when Lincoln went for Scabala, obviously under-21s coach at Leeds at the time, unless you can find that outside, I mean, that's where, to be fair, someone like Des Buckingham comes in, because he was the outside-the-box appointment when Oxford appointed him, but he had that link to the club. That's, I guess, the only other thing is that you go for that kind of under-21s, under-23s manager at a Premier League Championship club.
Look at our recent successes.
But there's no guarantees that could work. Obviously, it works with Wagner because what was he? Dortmund second coach.
Dortmund second.
Second.
Right, Callum. Any names jumping out at you?
There's more names. I was trying to go through it in my head then, and I was thinking, like, oh, decent League One manager. Oh, Danny Cowley. No, we can't. We've already sacked him. Oh, Darren Moore. No, we can't. We've already sacked him.
Don't get me started on the Cowley one, because.
So I'm again a bit like Kaine. There's no actual name sticking out for me. I think
it's going to be Paul Warne, isn't it, Cal? It's going to be Paul Warne, and
I don't really hate that idea because
I do.
But that's essentially us resigning ourselves to becoming a yo-yo club between League One and the Championship, like Rotherham were, because that's how Paul Warne works.
Or you end up as Derby, he gets you out of the Championship, and then you give it 6 months and sack him in the Championship, and hey ho, you need another manager again.
That's so Town. We definitely do something like that.
Yeah, but but he doesn't play good football, does he, Cal? He just doesn't, does he? I mean,
you know what, Steve? Neither do Huddersfield Town.
No, I know, mate. So we are a match made in heaven in that scenario, aren't we? Let's be honest.
Two managers I'd have had, but they are both in jobs, unfortunately. And I thought about this when Town got Michael Duff, Steve Cooper and Gary Rowett. I think two managers who do great jobs, whichever club that they're at.
Yeah.
But obviously that they're in work now, and it's going to be tough for Town. And there's no real names popping up to me. Again, I've already said what I think they should look for, and I hope they find it. And they might have to look abroad. And yes, they won't have the experience of League One, but as I've already mentioned, if you're playing high-tempo football in the face of the opposition, you'll go a long way in League One.
Okay, we're going to start wrapping it up. very quickly. Just as a quick answer, Kaine, I'll go around everybody. Do we trust Huddersfield Town to get the right appointment next? And more specifically, do we trust Mark Cartwright to get the choice right?
I can answer that one easier, probably. I don't think I do trust him to get the right one.
Right, so he needs to go. Okay, Callum?
I feel like my feelings on this are well known on this podcast, but no, I don't trust him to get the next one right. And no, I don't trust the club at all in any decision at the moment, be it managerial or what beer should we have on the concourse.
Okay, so Callum's really not happy at the moment. Chris?
I'll be honest. If Kev keeps the same advisors in place, no, I wouldn't trust them to make the right appointment. If Kev gets rid of the existing advisors and brings in some new advisors, I would back them more to make the right appointment.
Okay, and Mr. Sale?
I agree with everything that's been said. I think there's a bit of a disconnect at the top, and it will be interesting to see if Mr. Nagel takes advice from others, because it appears that he's probably gone, headstrong into getting rid of Duff. Will he go headstrong in appointing a manager that he knows that can do the job by himself, which could create more issues again?
Well, it's been a fascinating chat. Thank
One
you
more
very
thing.
Go on.
Sorry, Dan. I just want to touch on, because obviously the first thing that we've probably all done today is gone to Google and typed in next manager odds, and there aren't any anywhere. And I think Ian mentioned this in one of the comments earlier on about the lack of odds. Now, my understanding is, and I know a lot of bookies work on the premise that if an interim manager manages 10 games, they have to pay out as a permanent manager. So, hey, presto, the fact that they've gone public and said Jonathan Worthington is going to manage 10 games, the book is like, right, we're not touching this with a barge pole, because obviously they don't want people to lump on Worthington, manage 10 games and have to pay out. So it'll be interesting to see actually whether the next manager odds and all that sort of thing from the betting companies comes in the next few weeks to come towards the end of the season rather than now. Just because I saw Ian's comment earlier kind of asking about next manager odds.
Yeah.
And that I think anyway is why there isn't any, because so many bookies say, if an interim manages 10 games, they class as a permanent manager and therefore they'd have to pay out.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Last two things. Huddersfield Town have got a home fixture at the John Smith Stadium next Saturday against Crawley Town.
Football.
Actual football will be taking place. We get to touch grass, but we don't, but the players do. Kaine, scoreline and goal scorers.
3-0, Joe Taylor and Ben Wiles.
Okay, Callum?
4-0. Hat-trick from Joe Taylor and 1 for Dion Charles.
And if Joe Taylor gets a hat-trick, Callum, can we see you running on the pitch to give him a big hug?
You probably will anyway.
All right, cool. That's fine. Chris?
I mean, I suspect it'll be a comfortable win. I would also say 4-0. All goals scored by players who at this very moment of time are considered injured.
Okay, Lewis.
Danny Ward's back.
To probably mix it up, because it's a crazy week. Last minute goal from Ladapo, 1-0 win.
Okay. And I will give this prediction a 0-0 draw, because we don't score at home. So that's what we're going with. Also, we asked a question right earlier at the start of the day, because Mr. Lewis Sale was straight on social media and asked, was it the right decision to sack Duff? Yes or no? Well, our audience disagrees with Mr. Callum and also Mr. Kaine Hall, because they said that 55% of us would want to keep Duff. It wasn't the right decision. And only 45% thought it was the correct decision. So, hey-ho, our audience...
Caveat on that, that's a very, very small number of votes from the town.
That's all Michael Duff burner accounts.
So our audience obviously knows more than our football experts on the show. Anyway, it's been fantastic to have you on, chaps. Thank you very much for Lou and Chris dropping in on this Town Talk special. Have you enjoyed it, lads? Are you glad that you came on Sunday evening?
Mate,
Good.
you've had me on a town show twice today.
I know,
so
it's amazing. It's amazing. We'll get you on more next time. Also, Callum, thank you very much for coming on, mate.
No worries. Thank you very much, gents.
nice.
I'm
And
once
Enlightening and wonderful as always.
And once again, Mr. Hall, thank you for your forthright views. They're always appreciated, even if we sometimes disagree with them.
Yeah, as always, but that's what football's about.
That is what football's about. And on that term, we'll see the football very, very shortly. Check out Monday's show tomorrow where all the chaps will be back. Well, I don't know if we'll all be back, but Dave Foy will be happy because Halifax were the only West Yorkshire side to win. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow and have a great rest of the Sunday evening. Thank you very much. Goodbye.